Mozzarella Puff Lab. If you are at Tinley, the very first things you need to do is you need to get out your apron, put your hair up, wash your hands, disinfect your counter, disinfect your iPads. For me, I've already disinfected my countertops, I've obviously put my hair up, and I have washed my hands. Once you do that, the next step is to get out all of your equipment and all of your ingredients. For this lab, you will use biscuits. It comes in 8. You are only making 4, so you're going to use half of the tube of biscuits. Mozzarella cheese. I am just using string cheese, but if you want to buy a block of cheese and cut it that way, you can as well. But string cheese is honestly the easiest way to go about it. You will need oregano or any sort of like Italian seasoning will do as well. For me, I'm going to use the Italian seasoning. And then you need marinara sauce as well that you'll dip your mozzarella puffs in. Once you have all that out, you need to then get out your equipment. You will need a cutting board to cut the cheese. You will need a butter knife to do it. You don't need anything sharper than a butter knife. You will need 1/4 of a teaspoon. So 1/4 of a teaspoon, TSP or little t, to measure out the oregano or Italian seasoning. You will also need a small bowl to put it in, since you measure everything before you actually start cooking. It needs to go into something and not just sit there. You will need a butter knife or straight edge spatula to level off the oregano or Italian seasoning. A liquid measuring cup for your marinara sauce. Now, if your liquid measuring cup is not glass, you will also need a small bowl to put it in after, to put it in the microwave and warm it up. And then lastly, you will need a cookie sheet or jelly roll pan. So let's remember our cookie sheet's the one that is flat and it has just kind of a little edge right here, versus your jelly roll pan is the one that's all 4 sides come up about 1 inch. So you could either, depending what you have at home, use a jelly roll pan or cookie sheet. So before you start measuring or doing anything else, you need to get out all of your equipment and your ingredients. Okay, so before I even start measuring, I'm gonna go ahead and preheat the oven just to make sure that it'll be ready in time. So we need to preheat it to 375. So 375, and then on mine, I just press start and it will start preheating. Now that our oven is going ahead and starting to preheat to make sure that it's ready in time, we need to measure out our ingredients. The only things that we have to measure is our oregano and our marinara sauce, so we don't have much at all. Like I said, I'm going to use Italian seasoning instead. So what I'm going to do is take my 1/4 teaspoon, go ahead and put it in there. And if you see, I'm gonna have it completely overfilled. Use my straight edge spatula or the back of a butter knife and level it off. Now, because I'm not going ahead and putting it onto anything yet, I need to put this into something because I don't want it to just sit on the counter and tip over. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put it into a small bowl right there. All right, and then I need to, again, measure my sauce. Because it is generally liquid, we're gonna need to use a liquid measuring cup to measure out our sauce. So I'm gonna do 1/4 of a cup. So I'm gonna pour it and kind of get down at eye level. If it's a little more, a little less, for this, it's not gonna matter as much, but you want it at about 1/4 of a cup. Okay, pretty good. And then we're just gonna put those off to the side while we get everything else organized. So, number 1 says to go ahead and preheat the oven. We already did that. Number 2 says to line your cookie sheet with parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper, that is okay. If you are at Tinley with me, we're lining it with parchment paper. The biggest thing with parchment paper is you don't want it to hang off the sides. And that is because the paper itself will actually burn. So you always want to make sure you cut it so it's not hanging off the sides too much because it will burn. Okay, so the next step is to take 4 of your biscuits and you're gonna lay them flat on the surface. So you wanna open up your can. If it doesn't pop open, you just have to kind of hit it on the side of the counter and it pops open. I'm gonna take 4 of these out. If you are at home and you wanna do more, as long as you have enough cheese and enough everything else, you can. However, if you do the full amount then, so right now we only have 1/4 of a teaspoon. If you're doubling the recipe, 1/4 doubled would be 1/2 of a teaspoon. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm laying these down and I'm gonna flatten them out. Again, if you really touch anything, make sure you wash your hands before you flatten these out, if you touch anything that is not clean. So you're gonna flatten them out. Now that I have them flattened, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my Italian seasoning or oregano and I'm gonna sprinkle each one with the seasoning. So I'm just gonna put a little on each and then add more if I have more left over. Okay, once you have that, you're gonna kind of just put them off to the side because the next step is to go ahead and cut our cheese to put them in the middle. So I'm gonna, all right, so now I have my cutting board in front of me and my butter knife and I need to cut my cheese into 4 pieces. Again, you can use any kind of cheese you would like. String cheese is probably the easiest. How I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna first cut it in the middle and then cut that one in half and then that one in half. So right there, I have 4 pieces. You wanna use a cutting board. Anytime you cut anything, you use a cutting board. If there's a reason at home you do not have a cutting board, use a plate or something. You don't wanna just cut right on your countertop. So I'm gonna kind of scoot that off to the side and grab my biscuits back. And all that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my mozzarella and I'm gonna put it in the middle of all 4 of my biscuits. Now, from there, we want to close them up to make them into a puff. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of pull the sides. See how I did it like that? So almost like a little taco almost at first. And then the other 2 sides. And kind of pinch it all in the middle. So it looks like this. So it's all pinched. I shouldn't see anything. Now, the biggest part of it is when I put it back onto my cookie sheet, I want to flip it over so the seam side is down. So again, I'm going to take it, pinch it, pinch the sides, pinch the sides, and flip it so the seam side is down. Pinch the sides. And flip it with all 4. If you don't flip it, what will happen is it will open up from the top and it won't turn into an actual puff. You really want to make sure that the seams are completely closed because it could do the same thing on the bottom too if you don't kind of close everything completely. Right, so once your oven is preheated to 375, you need to wait until your oven is preheated. You're gonna go ahead and put your mozzarella puffs in your oven. You wanna use some sort of oven mitt. Here's my little guy. You wanna use that to put it in the oven so you do not burn yourself. You should not put it in without anything. All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put them into the oven. Again, use an oven mitt so you do not burn yourself. The biggest part, especially when you're using things with parchment paper, it has a tendency to sometimes slide off of your cookie sheet. You want to make sure that when you are grabbing it, you are holding the parchment paper down as well so it does not fall off. From there, you want to set your timer for 10 minutes. Press start. Once you put your biscuits in the oven, so you're starting it off at 10 minutes, and then we'll add time as needed. You want them to be a little golden brown on the outside. While we're waiting, we're gonna go ahead and we are gonna heat up our marinara sauce so that it's nice and warm to dip it in. If you are in a glass liquid measuring cup, you can go ahead and put a paper towel on top of this. If it is plastic, you then need to put it in a microwave safe bowl. Again, so some paper towel over it, and you are just going to go ahead and microwave it for 15 seconds. All right, so I just microwaved this for 15 seconds. It's not too hot. If you feel like you want it a little warmer, you can add more time. Just do 10-second increments. I'm gonna go ahead and actually leave the paper towel on top just to try to keep it a little warmer and put it off to the side. Now is your time to clean everything. Your puffs still have time in the oven and your sauce is done. So you're gonna start cleaning your entire kitchen. You should have your sink already filled with hot soapy water. You'll have the small towel, which is to wash the dishes, and the larger towel to dry everything. Everything should be completely dried inside, and then you're putting them back in the kitchen in the right spots. Now, once you are completely done doing the dishes, empty out your sink. Dry your sink out. There shouldn't be any food. There shouldn't be soap in it, anything left. Disinfect your countertops, because once the puffs come out of the oven, you're gonna wanna eat them. And everything needs to be cleaned, and you need to be checked out of your kitchen in order for that to be done. So my timer went off at 10 minutes, and I added 2 extra minutes onto it. So I ended up having it in for 12 minutes. You wanna make sure, again, you have your oven mitt. Hold on to the parchment paper, pull them out, and put them on top of your stove. Close your door, and turn everything off. And this is what they should look like. They should be golden brown, and that's when you know that they are finished. You'll dip them into your pizza sauce and enjoy.